Well, there it is, Jess. We are here. It is Wednesday, and Jess, it is AMA Day. I was really excited. You brought this to the table recently, and you're like, we should just do an AMA episode. And I got to tell you, the first time that I thought about that, first time you said that, I was like, have you ever gone into an AMA on Reddit? Those get crazy. Like if you just go type in AMA on Reddit. So I don't know if we're getting that crazy today, Jess, but I am excited to do this.
I am too, and we actually got responses and questions sent to us DM, and I'm excited.
So what we did on the AMA, and you can still ask in the comments section if you're listening or watching on LinkedIn Live, ask away, we'll pivot. What we decided to do today is take a break from our guest episodes, do a fully unrehearsed, I don't even know what questions are going to be asked to me today. Jess doesn't know what I'm going to ask her, and we're just going to go with it. So marketing questions, life questions, anything in between, definitely ask us. And the reason we're doing this is just sometimes to hear marketers talk through some of these common questions that we think in our head, but we don't ask out loud. It's kind of cool just to hear other perspectives. And Jess, as we've worked through this show, I feel like that's been a big thing that we've highlighted, both you and I, is that people will say things a little more freely under this format than they might under a team meeting. So I think it'd be interesting just to explore some of those questions.
Yes, and you bring up a good point, because when I was looking at the questions that were sent to me directly, it just made me think more about how, the lines are blurred. And when you think about your professional brand, it really is your personal brand now. So I think we have a lot to talk about.
Definitely. So let's jump right into it. I know you got some lined up for me, Jess. So I'm going to let you kick it off, and I'm going to do my best on an impromptu answer. And I'm going to do my best not to take it into Reddit AMAs today.
Yeah, we won't go into that rabbit hole today. But yeah, so as we mentioned, Andy has not heard of these questions or seen the questions. We wanted it to be a surprise for both of us, so we can really answer freely and off the cuff. So first question for you, Andy, from one of our listeners: what has been your favorite marketing campaign and why?
That's well, I was gonna say it's an easy one for me. Then I stopped for a second. So oh man, there's two that come right out of the gate for me. So, I'm gonna go off to the rabbit hole a little bit. I'm not. There's one that's kind of like my resume campaign, and then there's one that's just my personal favorite campaign. This is about personal creativity, what we like. So I'm gonna instead not go to my default answer. I'm gonna go to in my heart answer. So this campaign was when I was working in radio, and this is 2016. It's not 2016, it's around that era. And I was the social media manager, mostly organic, very little paid. In radio, we had paid partnerships. And we had a partnership with a restaurant that was similar to like a Chipotle. Does the burritos, just kind of different how they do them, but kind of, similar concept. They were opening a new location, and we were in a marketing discussion. I'm with marketers that, I'm a couple years in, they're 25 years in. So we're in a marketing discussion. They bring the social media dude in, and I'm talking about what we could do to enhance the reach of this opening in the partnership with the radio station. So my grand idea was we should have an eating contest with their burritos to put them on the map. So I float the idea, but the nuance I did is like, hey, we're radio and we're having this partnership. What if we have an eating competition? We bring our hosts and they broadcast it like it's play-by-play, and we broadcast it on Facebook Live. So Jess, you probably remember 2016, like Facebook Live was like, whoa, like we're able to put social media live. Like, what is this? So it was kind of new to us. We're trying to figure it out. So we set up a broadcast. We promoted the heck out of this new restaurant opening on the radio, on Facebook, on Twitter. Like we were hitting it hard. And then they broadcast a full show from there. Then they did the live element where we did the eating contest. We had the registrations were through the roof for this. We were able to get it going. Restaurant was packed to the point people were standing outside. Like, it was just like this huge, overwhelming amount of people that showed up and wanted to be a part of this campaign, and just watch the contest. So ended up being a huge success. The ROI on that, ROI because he filled the restaurant for the day was good. But more importantly, what we're able to do is we established a successful relationship with the restaurant owner, the business, and they wanted to work with us and purchase radio ads and continue, working with us. When I talk about budget, Jess, like my social media budget at that time, not thousands, hundreds. I mostly all organic, couple $100. It's not like the most pizzazzy one that I'm going to have, because I'm not going to have all this last click attribution and ROI. The reason that one's my favorite is because we just did something to say, heck, let's go do it. We ended up filling the restaurant that day. It was different than what I think Facebook Live had seen before. It was just fun. And we just had fun doing marketing. So that's my personal favorite, if we're just talking personal.
I love it. And it's so important that you highlight just the fun aspect to it. Sometimes you do your best work when you are having fun and you aren't so focused on the ROI and you're in test mode. But yeah, just playing with it is so important.
Just bring fun into social media. That's how I tell people that work in this industry. Is like, this industry should be fun. I know work isn't fun 24/7, but if it's like 0% fun to you, social media should be fun. So strive for those roles or those opportunities that can get it there. Which leads me into my question for you, Jess. So we're going to start off. I'm going to give you a basic one before we start working to some of the harder questions here. So let's simply start. How did you get into marketing?
Yes. Oh, this is a great question. I went to Indiana University and I majored in marketing and entrepreneurship. And when I got into one of my marketing courses, my senior year, one of my professors was named Anne Bastinelich, and she used to work at Leo Burnett. And it was like what you would think, like, from Mad Men. Like, if you ever watched Mad Men, Andy, have you watched Mad Men? I know I've brought it up before.
I haven't. I know the premise of it, but I have not watched that show. And I'm a TV person who like binges 50 episodes in a month. So it's probably poor of me for not have watching it.
Okay, so I have a new a new idea for like one of our upcoming shows, or maybe a series of shows. I am going to have you watch some of like the top episodes, or like the episodes like with the most the interesting marketing campaigns, and then we are going to do a deep dive. We're going to break down the episode.
That's me right there. So you've gotten me to read already, Jess, which was a huge step in the right direction. So getting me to watch this is definitely up my alley here.
Yes. So yeah, I'm a big Mad Men fan, and I find lots of inspiration from that show, because it's really talking about advertising in the 60s, and the characters are incredibly written, and the campaigns that they are discussing and launching are absolutely fantastic. So anyway, this is my professor. True, like Don Draper, like to a T, like what you would expect. So she was a major inspiration, and I would just listen to her talk about like her experiences at Leo Burnett, and it was very exciting, and I just knew that that's something that I wanted to do, and it was a way for me to be somewhat creative in a business setting. And I graduated college, and I applied to every agency in Chicago, and the idea was I really wanted to be at Leo Burnett. That was the dream at the time, and it didn't it didn't work out, but I ended up at a recruitment agency called Shaker. And so I was able to like really get into the business, but then also get into the talent marketing side of things at a time when the internet and digital media was really starting to grow. So it was a new space. It was very exciting, and that's how I got started.
Very cool. And I think that's the power of what you talk about here, a professor. So one thing I want to highlight before we move to the next question is I feel like, and we might actually hit on this more in some other questions. I have a feeling we will, is so much of marketing right now is ROI, leads, CPM, all these things. And that's like the focus of the conversation so much. Like, it's like, there are times where I just want to scream because I want to talk about something different. I want to talk about marketing, like Mad Men. I need to watch it because it talks about the art of marketing. And where I feel like we can be helpful on this program is, what if just our words and our conversations lead one person to say, hey, I want to join this industry, or one person, I want to do something different, or I want to be creative, or I want to do these things. You show the power in that, in what you had with your college professor. And I think that's awesome to hear that one person could make that type of difference, and really just scale your life into a completely, positive direction for, both your professional and personal growth.
Absolutely. And I would say to the students or the young workforce that's entering the field, just to be adaptable and to be flexible, and you may have an end goal, and that's absolutely fantastic. I'm all about having goals as well, but realize that it's one step in your path and your journey. And being at Shaker Advertising was such an incredible learning experience, because it was a new element of marketing, a new element of advertising. So there was a lot of like, let's test and learn. Like, we don't know what we're doing. So let's let test, learn. And I learned, and I gained so much experience than maybe what I would have gained from like going directly to a big agency where things are more standard and established.
I love it. Well, I'm ready for my next barn burner here.
Okay. Oh, look at this. I need to change my settings on my iPhone where it doesn't go to silent, or where I don't have to unlock it every few minutes. I know how easy it is. I just have not done it yet. Okay, next question. I digress. Next question. What companies or industries are doing innovative marketing and that I could follow? I mean, they specifically asked that I could follow on LinkedIn, and I thought, well, that may be a little misleading. Like, they're all over the place on social media, so
Yeah,
we'll keep it open.
I will tell you one, and I say this every time in every vertical, to say, where do you get creative inspiration from? I personally find that trying to look at creativity just solely from your vertical is incorrect. Like, let's say that, hey, I'm in tech, but I only want to see tech examples. I don't want to see that. I want to see the best examples of creativity out there. And I want my creative brains to work on how they can craft that into their own. For me, when I look at social media, the playbook is clearly out there, and it's MGM Resorts, who, if you're familiar with MGM, they own basically all of Las Vegas. So we're talking about, the Aria, the MGM Grand, the Luxor, and you can go on. There's like 15 of them they own over there. So you think about what they own. They own the hotels, the casinos, the hospitality aspect. There's also restaurants, there's nightlife, there's shows, there's events, there's B2B, getting partnerships, there's boxing, there's been sports that have come to the area now. They have the NFL, they have NHL, they have these partnerships with them. MGM runs every single level of marketing on every single channel, on every single medium. And they could very easily just be corporate companies, say the same thing and do it, just go along with the flow. I strongly recommend looking at their social media on all, just a mixture of their channels. They create an organic presence. They use UGC a lot. They showcase the customer better than anybody. And the biggest thing is they have never lost the organic feel in their ads, their styles, their just implementation. So I look to them a lot. I like playing blackjack, sure, but look at it more. I think sometimes walls go up. It's like, hey, we look at this company, we say they have a lot of money and their examples wouldn't be correct for us, or they're a different vertical, their examples wouldn't be correct for us. Eliminate all of that. Look at how they're talking one-to-one to customers. Look at how organic style creative they're using. They have all the money in the world. They can make Disney productions all day, but they're staying very organic and one-to-one in the approach they use. So I've always liked MGM a lot. I saw them at a conference. We talk about people being inspiring. When they went through their social media strategy, it inspired me. And a lot of the techniques they talked about in simply a 45, 30-minute session, those techniques have lived with me for years afterwards. So that's my example. I would highly recommend just following their accounts. It's a great kind of case study. Whether you're looking for like e-commerce, organic, social media, B2B, it hits on everything.
Yes. And just to confirm, we are not sponsored by MGM, but we are open to the opportunity if they would
Yes.
like to sponsor the podcast.
We're always open to sponsorships. So I gave a ringing endorsement. So I'm going to cut that clip and send it to them and be like, you're welcome.
I quickly, I want to jump in as well, just talking about like the organic piece too. For me, one example, and again, looking outside of the industry, which I think is such a good point, Andy. I know we've talked about this in past episodes, but I really love what Lego does, and I love what Lego does on LinkedIn as well, and it's just absolutely fantastic because they use that playfulness that's part of their brand. Like you can really tell that they understand their brand identity and their brand value. So you'll see on LinkedIn that their organic and paid ads, they speak to the professional, an adult, and they speak to children as well. And that that playfulness that we have inside of us, maybe as children, that we want to unlock as adults as well. So yes, loving Lego.
And that's risky too. We talk about so much about personas that a lot of people build up. They're like, hey, let's say Lego persona is like 35 plus and you're talking to like their inner child. Like that's a different writing style, so that takes someone really feeling creative and the company trusting that this is going to work. And I've seen that too, that it's, very like in the moment, conversational. And I love that. Anytime I be conversational, that's what we're looking for. Here's one for you, Jess. So if you could change one thing about our industry, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy hitting question. Oh,
I had to ramp you up with the
goodness.
fluff one at the beginning to get to this.
Okay. What wouldn't I change? No, just joking. I do love the industry. This is okay. This is definitely tough. And I don't know if you could change this because it's so a part of the advertising and also like just getting to the core of people's values. But I've made this joke before, and you may remember, but I call it social me instead of social media. So it's something that I grapple with a lot, where I see things that are very like self-centered, that like, they're very focused on just the individual, and like I'd like to see more of like people not having like not having like the end goal being like focused on them, if that makes sense. But like that's a major part of marketing, because with marketing, you're asking your customers to buy your product and engage with your service, engage with your brand, etc. So I really struggle with how like self-centered and focused on the individual social media and marketing is. But then I also know that that is a part of the industry, and it's a big part of the industry. So maybe there could be a little more of a balance, because it is so important to understand your customers' values, their emotions, like what is personally driving them. I just wish it wouldn't be so focused on the individual and like the end goal of like, it's just all about me versus a larger group.
And I think that's the tough thing that influencers really face, because,
Yeah.
well, let's like separate influencers from personal accounts. So like if you're just looking at personal accounts, there's probably 99.9% of them are just that, and they can show up on your feed. The 0.1% are actual influencers who usually have a marketing directive of a community they're trying to, really foster to and showcase that community. So I think what happens are these accounts, we lump it all kind of together, and there's a lot of noise. And that's what I feel like a lot of these platforms have been fighting for so long, is how to showcase people, but don't showcase too much noise. And then the me gets in there, and sometimes it could be highly engaging, but it's highly engaging for the wrong reasons. So, do you want someone to be highly engaged in crazy content, or do you want to be informative content? So that's a tough battle, I think we all toe, but I would say just what you're thinking is what most of us agree with. So I think that's a pretty solid consensus statement across all of social media.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm not alone here, because it does make me feel it's cringeworthy for sure. And well, okay. Went off there. Andy, next question for you. Oh, this is actually a good one for you, just given your past experience. How frequently should I move roles, companies, or industries?
I have a very strong opinion on this. So you should move roles or companies when these two things are not happening. So the first thing that's not happening, are you not growing career wise? Could you, and don't answer this after a week, give it months. Like, are you thinking that I'm not growing? Have you tried to grow? Have you tried to ask for these opportunities? Are you not getting them? Is there just not a route there? That's the first sign. The second sign, I would say, is just, this is going to be one of the most is blanket broad advice, is, are you enjoying it? So we look at the digital industry of 2014 and 2015, like social media people, marketing people, we're just fighting to like get in the room. Like, we're just like, we just want to be here. In 2022, 2023, it's a tough market right now because of the layoffs. I do think it'll get better at some point, but there are options, thousands of options, thousands of options, remote options, whatever that may be, especially early in your career where you're trying to just expose yourself to different things, whether it be in-house, agencies, wherever that might be. I feel like you need to look at your role. Are you growing to whatever your North Star is? It could be partially monetary. It could be partially a role you're looking for. It could be a scale you're looking for. I think it should be something that's true to you, and then have these other components tied to it. But are you growing towards it? And are you enjoying the culture that you're working in? If you could answer at least one of those two, I think it gives you some staying power to see, hey, do things turn to a certain way, get to a certain way. If you answer 0 out of 2 of those, then I definitely think you should be looking. And I don't feel like there's this harsh world anymore where it's like, hey, if you did a job here, 1 year, you did a job here, 1 year, you did a job here, 1 year. Like, I think people are afraid of that. But my advice would be is there has to be a storyline to your marketing career. So I look back at mine, I've jumped around a little bit, but there's a direct storyline to each of these jumps. One of them was I left radio because I felt like I could explore the marketing world at a deeper lens. I wanted to see if I could actually do it at an agency level with different clients. I went from that agency to the next agency because I was building out a social media program. I went from there to the next spot because I lost my job and I had to get one. But I ended up getting a really good one, Space Center Houston. It was transformative. I left that job for a supervisor role. I went on above into the next role after that because I started working with $1 million accounts. I wanted to see if I could do scaled work at a high level. And then I went to LinkedIn because the role really lend itself to speaking, creative thinking, kind of stuff that's I'm really passionate about. So it had a storyline. So I think all those roles have to meet your storyline, and maybe that changes over the course of time. Your North Star can change, or you may not even know what it is fully, and you're kind of working on that as you go. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I have strong opinions on the whole thing about job hopping and if that's taboo or not. I think it just has to make sense for you. So, is it growing your career and are you enjoying it? I think at the where we see the marketing world, tech world, et cetera, right now, it's just these jobs are a lot more plentiful than they would have been in 2015, where you kind of had to stick with what you had. So I'm not telling you to leave. If there's any employers listening, I'm not telling your people to go run out the door. I'm not telling you to run out the door. I'm just telling you to constantly ask yourselves these questions. And if you feel like there's a gap somewhere, be very transparent to your manager. Don't go threatening to leave. Don't do crazy things. Just say that, hey, this is where I'm trying to grow, and see if they can help you get there.
And to add to this, I have a little exercise that you could do to help plot out your storyline. And I did this with a leader at LinkedIn, and it really was what helped me pivot and really get into the innovation space. But essentially, just on a whiteboard or in your notepad, you plot out what's your current experience, and that could be like your jobs, what industries are you working in, like what are certain functions that you're focused on, etc. What are your skills as well. And then you plot out like, well, where am I missing skills, or are there any industries that I am not currently focused on that I could be focused on? And then finally, you start to think about what curriculum or, what experiences could I gain in order to meet that gap. And when I did the exercise, it was very clearly pointing to design and product. And that is how I got into like the innovation side of things.
So that leads in perfectly, Jess, to the next question I have for you here. And we're talking about kind of career journeys. Let's talk about this. Jess, since you've been in this game, how has marketing changed for you personally? So there's a key word, you personally, in marketing since you started.
Oh man, it's going to be a little bit of a contradiction with the social me, but I really hope, like, with the messaging and the brand that I am putting out there, it is really stems from like a curiosity in others and wanting to help others. But I would say what's changed for me is like this, and we talked about it a little earlier, just this idea of how your personal brand and your professional brand is coming together. So, we did this challenge, or Andy, you and I are working on this challenge that Courtney, one of our previous guests, recommended. Like, we've been posting a lot more frequently, and like this is very much out of my comfort zone and now just given that I have a little time while I'm feeding my baby, I'm starting to like post daily now on LinkedIn, and that is something that is very different than how I was like maybe a year or 2 years ago. So really just putting more of that focus on like, how is the personal and professional brand coming together and just being more authentic and just true to my voice on both fronts.
What I've seen it as for my voice is, I think of myself as a marketer. I just talked with my fiance Kristen recently, and there's different types of marketers. So there's like your paid marketers, everything's X, Y, Z. They're very good at what they do, especially in e-commerce. They can make companies millions and millions of dollars. It's your creative marketers, it's your brand marketers. And then there's some that are just kind of your crazy marketers. They're like the ones that kind of just have the ideas off the wall. And I feel like the way that I made my career what it was is I was a bit of the crazy marketer. And I feel like I've taken a lot of steps away from that because I'm almost afraid to showcase that. So a challenge that you're talking about, blending personal and professional, is when I get a creative idea in my head, I like to write. And I got away from writing. I'm trying to bring it back. So the one article I wrote recently is how I would be a marketing director for Firefest 2 and how I would put it together. That was an idea that came to me late at night. I was like, I have to write about this. And sometimes, it feels good just to do these things, like just to talk about your energy and post what you want to post, but in a way that's community oriented. And I think that's what we've been doing. So I think this challenge has been exceptional for us to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I want to just clarify, like we're always authentic. I mean, man, I sound like a marketing sociopath here. Going back to the social me, like, yeah, we've always been authentic. I meant vulnerable. So just more vulnerable and sharing more of those stories where it didn't necessarily go the way that I was expecting.
So I'm ready for my next one, Jess. I think we have time for 1 to 2 more.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. What continuing education blogs, podcasts do you recommend?
Podcast, so this is going to sound terrible, Jess. Like, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts and we host one. I listen to more true crime podcast stuff than I listen to marketing. So, I will go a different direction and tell my kind of personal story. So for the marketing side, I do listen to a little bit of Gary Vee. I do his short form content more than I listen to his podcast content. Why Gary Vee is so big in my life is I was sitting around unemployed for 4 months. Before that, I won't go into specific numbers, but you could say that I'm close to a failing marketer. I'm not making a lot of money. People, I don't have, no one's dating me. I'm like probably gonna have to move back in with my parents. I have nothing in my savings account. 401k sucks. I was a struggling social media marketer. I transitioned my career. There's people that looked at that and were like, Andy, you like put 6-7 years into radio and you just jumped ship and like started the whole thing over. Like, I'm social media community manager, associate, whatever you call it, like entry level, like trying to get myself built up. And when you get to that point, like, you have to really focus on your thoughts, like what media you're taking in. You sit alone in an apartment for days at a time, like there's a lot of thoughts that can go through your head. So you gotta be really careful with that. So I started listening to Gary Vee a lot. I started watching him on Instagram. And if you're familiar with his style, it's a lot of personal branding, go follow your dreams, don't care about what other people think, lots of cuss words. But for me, that was really impactful just to hear somebody saying that, hey, I was 27, 28, and I'm still young, because that's not the vibe society was giving to me. It was that I had probably failed to this point. So that was helpful to hear. It kind of got my creativity sparked again. I just started kind of listening to things. He talks about personal brand, but he also talks about social media. So talking about things that are working on social, it was helpful to me to hear about how he deciphers content. So he'll take long form video and then he'll chop it up 50 different times and it becomes 50 different pieces of content. So it helped my organic strategy and how I can develop content without having huge budgets It helped me learn about influencer marketing and UGC, about how talking directly one-to-one people. But I'd say most of all, it just was helpful to hear somebody in this industry that had belief that anybody could do it, and you had a lot of time in the world to get it done. So it's just kind of, that was the thing that helped me. So I actually still listen to Gary Vee for that reason, not because I just put him on when I'm down, but I think it just helps me kind of keep thinking about creative energy, what I should be looking for in my career. He speaks to that a lot. So kind of helps reframe my brain. So that's a special one to me. I know that's kind of a mainstream voice that a lot of people listen to in the social media world right now. He says the same things over and over and over again. He says strategically, he says that because he thinks people need reminded of the same lessons over and over again. So I'm a big fan. His podcast on Spotify is a great listen. Instagram, short form clips, YouTube. I engage in all of it.
Yes, and I love this because we talk about this a lot too with our guests, and in every episode, it's all about finding your creative inspiration, and that can come from a variety of different content. It doesn't have to be just marketing focused content. I've talked about it before, and I talk about it in my sessions. Like, one of my fun facts is I absolutely look at these Disney vloggers and find inspiration in how it can be applied to B2B marketing, like from how they are talking one-to-one with their audience, like how they're having fun, and how they're keeping it super engaging. Yeah, because I think there's tons of learning lessons that we can get from these Disney vloggers and apply to other marketing sectors. Also, to the podcast that I'm currently into right now is the Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast. And what's fantastic about this is the 3 stars of the show are also the hosts of the podcast, and they were the writers of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And it's really relaxed, and I love how they break down their episodes by talking about their process as it pertains to writing, and how they came up with some of their ideas, or like what was their approach when addressing some of these controversial topics that may not have been able to be addressed in the same way nowadays versus 10 years ago. So really fantastic, and they're funny. I didn't realize like how clever and funny they were. I think initially I just thought, oh, they're actors, doing their thing, but it's very clever, and definitely lessons can be pulled from the show and applied to B2B marketing.
So many lessons can come to B2B or just any type of marketing from so many different places. And I hope that some of what we talk about can just open, the mind up of, where you can find these. We got one more, Jess. We got time. We got about 3 minutes here for one more. And what we have is, how can someone stand out in the world of marketing in 2023? So what I'm thinking is, all this noise in marketing right now, populated feeds, a million channels you can run out. What's the one way you can stand out?
I would say, being true to yourself, being authentic, being vulnerable, telling your story, and truly being interested in others. I've said this before and I will say it again: be interested versus interesting.
I love it. That's a goal too. I try to stay interested in as much as I can in things that are around us in the marketing world, because it just changes too much, especially since 2020. Like, I don't know if I've seen things just rapid fire change from year to year as much as we've seen the past 3. But just, this was a wonderful episode. It was something different, fun, interactive, and I think this would be a nice little addition just to throw on every so often, because I think that there's endless amounts of questions we can answer about the marketing world.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, let's do it. Oh, and I'll just quickly mention too, speaking of upcoming episodes or what we can do moving forward, oh, you know, our book club pick is in. Thank you to our listeners for voting, but we will be reading Sitting Pretty. That is the next book for the book club, and I'm not gonna ruin the surprise, but I will just let everyone know that we have a special guest that will be joining.
I'm excited. And that's thank you, Jess, for putting that together. That's, you know, been something too that I think has been so unique to our podcast to work through a marketing book club. It's just not something, I don't know if I've ever heard about in the other podcasts. We're excited to bring that to the table. Do got some different guests coming up. Got some space industry we're talking about. Been working on a few other guests. I'm trying to get some people from the Fire Festival marketing team. So, you know me, I'm going to try to go out in left field every now and then to talk about different concepts on our podcast. But we're excited to bring more of that to the table. Thank you for the questions, everybody. And we'll look forward to catching up here soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Everyone.